Survivor Specialist Phil and Alexa are back with our episode 11 recap for Survivor Season 41. And we're about to talk all about that crazy twist that Survivor threw in here that somehow Deshaun survived. I don't really understand how, but here we go. We'll see how we'll break this one down. We'll talk through it. There was a lot of hype around what this twist was going to be. I know anybody who follows Redmond or Inside Survivor or anything like that, we all pretty much knew what the twist was going to be. Like we had a pretty good sense, and it played out here a little bit differently than what I think we all expected. I think we all expected him to have the 50-50 chance, and instead he had a 33% chance. But Deshaun survives. Liana goes home. We are down to our final 6, which is the same number of confessionals that Heather still has going into episode number 12. Alexa, welcome back. How's everything going?
Everything is good. I am really, really pleasantly surprised with this episode. I was really not looking forward to this twist. And the main/only reason I was not looking forward to it is because I thought I correctly assumed that Jeff was going to be like, something bad will happen to you. Jeff told them what the deal was. I am super down with this twist. Everyone consented to what their deal was. Like fair in that they didn't know what their percentages were. But I think that's to me, that is a fair enough mystery to have. Deshaun knew the risk that he was taking. He knew that he would do something. And if that something went wrong, he would go home. I think there was still plenty of strategy to be had here. Everyone gets back and Deshaun says, okay, I'm good or I'm not. At the end of the day, when you're planning for tribal council, you're always good or not. So everybody very much still could plan for voting people out. What I did not realize, and I don't think this is like a good or a bad thing. If Jeff said it, I totally missed it. I did not realize Deshaun was going to be immune if he survived.
He did say it, yep.
Then I was just not listening. I kept thinking, I was like, well, what if Deshaun survives and they vote him out anyway? Like, is that the deal or not? But I think that also incentivizes it a bit more. So you can say, all right, even if I lose this immunity challenge, I still have an X% chance of being immune. So I thought it was great. I was a big fan. I liked that it was that I don't know what it's called, that door game where you're always, we grew up watching
they just said
Deal or No Deal.
It's the Monty Hall problem.
Someone in the comments is saying you're supposed to always switch. I was under the assumption you were always supposed to stick with your choice.
That's what I always thought.
Either way, worked out for Deshaun. I'm a fan of this because Jeff was honest with them. I thought it was a great episode.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I think my biggest thing moving forward is going to be 42. This will work in season 43. I don't think anybody will participate in that immunity challenge though, because we had 5 people participate in the immunity challenge tonight and only 2 people sit out. And I was really surprised how many people decided that they were going to stay in the challenge, but I thought it was going to be a 50-50 shot. That's what it seemed like it was being pitched as, all that. The fact that it was a 33% chance, that's it. Yeah, I don't like that. And I don't think that people are going to take that chance moving forward. Now you have a 1 in 3 shot, whereas really you have a 1 in 7 shot otherwise. I'd stick with the 1 in 7, to be honest.
I guess it depends on where how safe or unsafe you feel. And I think it was nice that we were able to hear Deshaun's reasoning behind this, because I think just as us at home, I would have thought that Deshaun would have felt pretty safe. But then knowing that he and Ricard had that back and forth, I sort of get him being like, okay, I really got to participate. The only people who did not participate were Heather and, ironically enough, Liana. I think we had sort of talked about this on Sunday, but I thought that Liana was she could have either been seen as the sitting duck now that Shan is gone, or not as threatening because Shan is gone. I don't fully know the main reasoning behind wanting to get rid of Liana, but maybe this was we can kind of clear through this vote and then we don't want to get rid of Ricard yet. We don't want to get rid of whoever. I thought Xander had a really interesting point where he didn't want to get rid of Ricard because then he gets exposed. There's a lot of meat shields shielding each other, and there's not a lot of people left. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, so I actually think Xander made the wrong move here, and here's why. He still has the idol, and at Final 5, he needs to win 1 immunity, have his idol, and then he can go to fire. he's completely safe. And I think you have to get rid of the biggest threat here. If he goes to the end with Liana's not getting any votes other like away from him. So I do think that this was ultimately the wrong choice for him. There's no more shot in the dark. If he loses immunity at final 6, he plays his idol. If he loses immunity if he wins immunity at final 6 and loses it at final 5, plays his idol at final 5, he's got the fire making. You keep around a really big threat in Ricard, and you still have threats all across the board. I'm starting to not see a way that Xander actually pulls off the win in this game. Danny finally got the personal content that we've been saying he has not gotten all season. Got a hell of a lot of it today, that's for sure. Big emotional episode for him, a lot going on there.
Wins an immunity, too. Wins his first immunity.
Wins an immunity. Deshaun, loads of personal content tonight. We see him redeem himself. At the beginning of the episode, I thought he was screwed. Then we see him redeem himself. We have Erica, who still isn't getting a very big edit, but she's been shown as playing the game, and sometimes that's all it takes. When I start looking across the board, Xander will beat Heather if he sits next to Heather. Who else is he going to beat out of this final 6? I'm starting to not see it, and I think tonight he needed to get rid of Ricard and go to the end with Liana and try to get Heather, or try to say, hey, I'm the one who saved Deshaun and Danny, so that's why they got to the end. I think he's running out of moves, and I actually don't think anybody's looking at him as enough of a threat to want to make him play the idol.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Xander actually used his extra vote tonight. And I'm sure Liana will be very upset to know that the reason she went home is because Xander used his extra vote. I'm curious how much Xander and Erica collaborated here, because this was sort of seen as like both Xander and Erica, but really more so Erica were the swing votes here. But if Erica swung back, then Xander plays his extra vote, and then it's tied. So I assume the two of them had to be working together. But what is interesting here, and what is very tough and bad for Erica, is Erica gets 0 credit in this episode for coming up with the idea to split the votes on Shan. And we're already talking about the fact that Xander is the one who did this and not so much Erica. So as much as I think she's a part of this decision-making, like, it's not really being directly shown, or maybe the players aren't exactly like thinking that. So I think like that's a tough position for Erica, but I think especially for Xander too, that is a good point. I didn't think about that, but it is pretty crazy that like Ricard is there. Danny, I think, is like a huge threat, and they aren't talking about it as obviously. Deshaun is a huge threat. Like everyone left. Erica, they're talking about, and she still hasn't gone home. Everyone left is really like is involved. A threat. This feels very millennials versus Gen X-y, where it's like a tight finish, which is really cool because I don't know who's going to win.
Yeah, and what's funny, so people are trying to figure out why Xander used his extra vote here. Xander used his extra vote to ensure that even if Erica switched, it would still be a tie, and Liana would still be the one going home. So he was that set on getting rid of Liana. I just think it's a short-sighted vote. Maybe Liana, Danny, and Deshaun would have never broken up, but you still have an idol. And if you go into final 6 with your 3 versus 3, play your extra vote, and you have the idol, nobody else has anything. Nobody else has anything. So just make that happen. Send one of them home at the next one. I think it was a short-sighted. I will say this is the first time that I actually think Xander made like a bad move. I don't like what he did here. I think it was a little short-sighted. He wants to get to the end with Erica and Heather. I think that's where his head is at, but he still could have gotten to the end with Heather and Erica, and he could have gotten rid of the biggest threat, I believe, in the game, which is Ricard, because Ricard has the best story right now out of everybody with all that he's had to overcome being on the Ua tribe to begin with. I think this was a bad move. He played his extra vote. His extra vote move made sense with what his plan was. I just ultimately think that it was a stupid move to vote out Liana over Ricard.
It also probably, like, we weren't directly told this, but Liana's been gunning for Xander so much that it probably wouldn't shock me that he's just like, I have to get rid of her because she throws my name out there all the time. So I think, like, I get his reasoning on both, but I think, like, watching this tribal council should have been a really, like, direct reason to get rid of Ricard. This conversation between Ricard and Ricard and Deshaun, this has happened every season ever, where there's two people and they get in a big fight at tribal council and they're going at it. Ricard did not get in a fight. He very calmly explained his side of things, his view and his perspective. Deshaun then realized that and talked about his perspective. And then it very calmly disseminated. That is not someone you want to be sitting with at the end. That is somebody who is beautiful at speaking.
I was just going to say, I don't believe this about Ricard, but his reactions sometimes make him feel like such a sociopath.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's so good, though, because I always say that the best Survivor players are sociopaths. Brian Heidick's a sociopath. Yeah, Brian Heidick could sit there and lie to your face and tell you whatever he wanted to tell you and then go and win the game. And I think Ricard has that mastered, but I think Ricard is much more likable when he's around these people. But he's doing such a great job in his confessionals. There's no emotion. At tribal councils, there's no emotion. That's how it has to be. I think that's why we didn't hear from him when they were having this conversation about the black contestants and Liana and Deshaun and Danny. And then we heard takes from Heather and Xander. I don't think we heard from Ricard because I think Ricard, he wasn't getting as emotional as everybody else. I think he's really good. And maybe he was, but we didn't see it. But I just think he's really good at controlling his feelings. And I agree with you 100%. You don't want to sit next to somebody who can control themselves at Final Tribal, because that's the kind of person who, when you start getting emotional, Steven Fishbach, JT will just sit there and be like, why are you being like this? I'm almost thinking you wouldn't have taken me to the end if you would have won. It's so easy to manipulate more emotional people when you're not emotional at all. Ricard is very dangerous in this game. I think they're crazy to have let him get this far. And I think that tonight, I do think Danny and Deshaun were 100% right. Tonight was the night to make it happen. Ricard goes into fire. Who's he going to lose to? I think Ricard's probably going, he could win the fire making challenge. You got to get rid of him in one of these next two votes, or Ricard's going to end up getting the $1 million check.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the good thing is Ricard does not have any form of advantage. There's no more shot in the dark left, which I kind of completely forgot about. I think Shot in the Dark did exactly what it needed to. Was not a major aspect of the season whatsoever. Good attempt. Only was used actually once, right?
Sydney was the only one who used it, and she actually got herself out of the game by using it.
Yeah, so I think that's like a good cautionary tale for people. So I'm glad it stops now, because now the votes are getting a lot smaller. I do think there is another shot to get rid of Ricard, because he has no advantage. He doesn't have any like major allies. The problem is being able to convince people. I don't know if maybe like now Xander will be able to be convinced for next week, but I'm not sure. Ricard also he's won 2 immunities, and there's no reason to believe that he couldn't win more. So the clock is really ticking on Ricard. It feels very like David Wright-y, where I can't imagine there's a direct way he gets to the end, but if he gets there, it's game over.
I agree with you, but I think they're starting to run, just like I was saying, they're running out of chances with Xander. Now I don't think they're running out of chances with Xander, because I don't think they're worried about him winning. I think they're running out of chances with Ricard. I think Danny and Deshaun are very vulnerable. They still have plenty of opportunities to get rid of them. They're not going to win every immunity. It seems like they are firmly in a 4-2 bad situation. Heather and Erica are who you want. At least Heather. You definitely want to go to the end with Heather. I still don't know if you actually want to go to the end with Erica or not. But in terms of Ricard and Xander, it seems like people might want to go to the end with him. Ricard, you got to be crazy to go to the end with Ricard. I think Ricard right now is in a good position because he's got 4 people. He does. The only way he's going to go home is if Danny and Deshaun are able to convince Heather and Erica, we have to get rid of Ricard tonight. Otherwise, he's going to win this game. Forget Xander. We're not going to be able to get him. If he gets to the end, though, we're not giving him a resume. But if we don't get rid of Ricard tonight, he's going to win the whole thing. And can they flip it to be 4-2? Deshaun and Danny have been very crafty throughout this entire game. I could see them making it happen, but that's where I think it has to be. Jordan Alford says it. Ricard has to go next week, and I think it's true. I think he has to go.
I think so, too. And I think, I just don't know how tied to each other those 4 are. I think Erica's a very smart player. I think you can easily sell Erica on getting rid of Ricard. The problem is Danny and Deshaun have wanted Erica gone forever. So do they have whatever they need to go to her and say, we need to get rid of Ricard, rather than going to Ricard and saying, we need to get rid of Erica? I think they're just now realizing that they're on the bottom, which we're obviously seeing for next week. But the problem is, everyone is so transparent on the season. Everyone is just directly telling people what other people are saying. And it's kind of screwing everybody up because there really isn't someone directly to trust except for like your direct number 1 and 2. It's really interesting. I've never seen people play like this where everyone just tells each other everything and blows each other's games up so easily.
Yeah, and it seems like they're all okay with it. Like that's
there's no like insult to it.
No, nobody's sitting there going, "Oh man, why are you doing this to me?" They're all very calm, cool, and collected with it. So yeah, I'm like all about it. So if you're in this game right now with the final 6 that we have, do you think that like Danny and Deshawn, are they trying to go to the end together at this point? Who do you think Ricard really wants to sit next to? Like, where do you think that we're at with all that? Because we've seen everybody just be really cool with like, hey, I'm going to blindside you. I'm going to get rid of you. Do you think we're at a point though now where because Ricard was very much saved by Xander tonight, that if Ricard were to turn on Xander next week and vote Xander out, that would be taken more personally now? Like, have we hit that point of Danny or Deshawn betraying each other that's going to blow them up and ruin their game? Like, how do we feel that people are going to feel about each other when Erica and Heather eventually vote one or the other out? If that happens, are they going to be pissed at the other one and try to rally against them when we get to a final tribal? Because we're in a weird spot where everybody's been very open, but is that actually going to start to become a hindrance now that we're this deep in the game?
Yeah, the only like verbiage we've seen so far is like Xander. I think it was like Xander, Erica, and Heather. And he was like, okay, I'm down to be with you guys. I think it was that group of 3. Danny and Deshawn, I assume that they're probably just at the point where they're like, we can't be alone. So we have to just be a united front together. I would assume, I can't tell. I think Xander is fine being with Heather and Erica. I don't really know what Heather and Erica want. Ricard, I assume he would not want to be with Deshawn because he's been working with him really closely. And I think a lot of their moves can kind of be seen similarly. And now he and Deshawn, they're not butting heads, but they're kind of like the 2 big strategy heads, like going at each other. What I'm just shocked that nobody is concerned about getting rid of Danny. I think, except now I think we're seeing this next week come about. But if I'm someone, I don't want to go to the end with Danny. I think Danny is like the easiest player. He's like the most likable player who isn't seen as an obvious threat. So I don't know. This breakdown is really interesting. I think next week is where people are going to just start telling each other their final 3s, but who knows?
Yeah. And again, with Danny, like we saw him tonight finally be able to come out of his shell with the viewers. He's already been doing this for the players. The players already know how likable Danny is. Mm-hmm. But now you're starting to let him build a resume. He had no resume really coming into tonight. He was just there. He was, he's a big, strong guy, had no votes. That's a big deal. But in terms of like actual game moves, Danny didn't have any big ones. Mm-hmm. Now Danny goes out, wins an immunity, is able to kind of talk about this whole thing with his father, the 25th anniversary of this happening. That's a big deal. That's a part of the story that he was not going to tell had he not made it this far. Mm-hmm. Have they let him get too far in the game now? Because if he does sit at the end, could he actually be somebody who beats Ricard? I personally don't think so. I think that this cast will favor gameplay more, but who knows? You really never can tell.
Yeah. Do you, oh, I completely forgot what I was going to ask here. I don't know. I'm missing it. Right. Yeah, I think like Danny maybe could beat Ricard. Deshawn versus Ricard is one that would be really interesting to me. Mm-hmm. I think that would be a tough one. And we got, obviously, like Shan was kind of the main character of this season. It was really interesting how much they kept showing her on the jury, because I think she is probably going to have a huge hand in who ends up winning this, because I feel like she'll like understandably feel very strongly and will be able to like whip a lot of votes in her direction. So I feel like this whole tribal council was sort of like a subconscious pitch from both Deshawn and Ricard to like get Shan's vote.
I agree. I do agree. And like, while I do think that a lot of this was very real, like I think most of this was real. I think like 99% of it was real. I do think that there's that 1% that's like, hey, we're still playing the game. And if you notice, like Deshaun, what he originally said to get this conversation going was, so you're admitting to me, Ricard, that you told me Sham was trying to vote me out. And Ricard said yes.
Yeah.
That was very important because it tells Shan, I caught you. But it also tells Liana, I wouldn't have voted Shan out if she would have just kept it to herself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a really, really big factor in why the conversation went the way it did, because Deshaun really wanted to save his name and make it apparent that, like, I did not vote you. I did not want to vote you out. But once I caught wind of it, and he doesn't want to be seen as the bad guy who broke up the Black Alliance in this season. He doesn't want that. Like, that's too much of a weight for him to carry on his shoulders. And he doesn't want people to have that perception of him. So that's why this was so important to him. So while there's a little bit of gameplay in there, it obviously is still a very big, just real, regular thing that's going on in the world.
Yeah. And you can tell, because this whole episode, he was like, I didn't, like, why did she say that? Why did she say it was a snake? Why'd she say that? I get that. It's like, I think I get that both from a game perspective and from the larger societal perspective as well. And I know there was a lot of music tonight on the, like, they cut to Heather, whole new music, cut to Sean, whole new music. But I think I wrote down something kind of funny. I liked when, during that whole scene, Erica is like, sometimes I love Survivor and sometimes I hate it. And Jeff was like, I love when people hate the game. Yeah. And I was like, God damn it, Jeff. Like, like get out of here right now.
You just can't stop yourself.
Just with this whole season. But I think that, like, we talk so much about how this show just kind of has gone away from the, like, microcosm of society, because you flip a die and you might go home, or you smash a die and you flip an hourglass, whatever. And this, like, that conversation is a very, very real way of, like, I want to play the game, but I don't know how to do both things at once. And I thought that was, like, I'm sure people won't like it for whatever reason they choose to, but to me, that was just a really good way to say, like, hey, everyone at home, it's not as easy as it looks. And I felt like Liana purposely interrupted it to be like, I know what people are going to say, and I'm already trying to cut it off. Like, it was so meta, and not in a bad way. Like, I just think everyone has been on social media, Survivor social media, enough to know, like, the complaints that people are going to have before something even airs.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is too, like, this is what Survivor was at the earliest stages of Survivor, though. It was really based on, like, building these relationships, these bonds that we never thought would happen, or these bonds that just naturally happen. You know, Marquez is a good example of that, with Pascal voting out Sean. He didn't really have any repercussions with that. But Sean and Vesepia, they had a natural bond. But Pascal and Sean still respected each other, still had a bond with each other. It's these things that you don't really expect to see. That's what Survivor is grounded in. And we haven't really seen it be grounded in that enough this season. It's something that I've said a lot, but I felt like this was a very diverse cast, where the diversity has not actually had an impact on the game at all, other than that Survivor could say, and CBS could say, we have a diverse cast. We haven't seen, okay, how do you feel, Xander, that you are playing the game with Evie? How do you feel that you're playing the game with Liana? We weren't seeing that until really this episode. This felt like the first time that we really got that conversation where it was like, hey, like, it's not just a conversation between the players and the audience. It's how everybody else is feeling. That's what Survivor is supposed to be, though. It's supposed to be that, you know, going back to, again, Marquesas, but the whole, I'm a pastor from Georgia. He's an inner city Harlem teacher. She's a very religious Black woman. And Nolia is like this Mormon from wherever. And then we have the farmer, whatever the hell, the lawyer from Vermont. Like, they talk about that specifically in the show. We weren't seeing enough of that this season. I know we got a lot about the Black Alliance, but we weren't seeing enough of it beyond that. And I feel like tonight really hit that. And it also hits that, like, there is that breaking of the fourth wall and saying to us, we know that some of you aren't going to like this, and we know some of you are really going to like this, but this is what we're feeling in the moment that we're playing the game. And that is why we need to do it this way. That's why we're, you know, trying to figure out who we're going to vote out, while also trying to navigate all of these things. These are the difficulties Survivor's supposed to have. It has a different conversation around it than maybe it did in 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. But it's still the same thing of, I want to win the game, but I really care about you as a human being. That is what this conversation is, just with a different spin than 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that's like one of the best, it's either Vecepia or Sean who have that confessional, but where it's like, you've got the judge from Georgia, you got the like the brother from Hart, like that's all, like that's one of the best quotes of like any season, because it's hilarious and it's great. So yeah, to your point, I feel like this was the first time, like one of the first times that this was really like the forefront of the discussion. And of course, Jeff ruined it completely, but
of course,
obviously, like what else would happen?
Hey, it's 2021. Let's be real at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to Danny a bit more, because there really wasn't a lot in this episode other than this whole vote out. As soon as Danny got this content, I was like, oh my God, this is not good.
It's his vote episode.
I felt like this could have been Danny's winner episode too, and I'm trying to manifest it as one does. But I just thought it was really cool that they took a negative memory of Danny. Not they took this. Like Danny was experiencing like a negative memory, and for that to be like capitalized on, and then he like reassociates it with something really positive, I thought was really just like really special and really cool. And I know we don't have a ton of these situations. Like I think like Sari doing poorly in challenges, like she's never like gone up and done well. Like Sunday, like kind of famously, like she celebrates her like her anniversary of being cancer free, and they don't even like freaking show it. Like this was a really cool example of like, here's something that has like majorly affected my life, and now I have like a much stronger association because of something I did in the game. I thought that was really unique.
No, and it's, you know, that whole overcoming, feeling better about everything. Like it's a big deal. And like, I mean, I sat there and I texted Alexa immediately after, just saying like, you know, Danny's the best. I friggin' love this guy. Like Danny, I mean, you know, like Shan was so much fun from just a survivor standpoint, from a different type of character standpoint. But Danny's just like the type of guy, the type of person that you just want to be around. Like you just like his story, the way he talks about things, the way he explains things, the way he treats other people, the way he's there for everybody in their own way while still being very Danny. Because, you know, obviously when you get to these situations, and you're talking about what's going on, you know, with Deshaun, what's going on in his head, and Liana speaking about hers, and he goes, Xander, what do you think about this? You're going to get partially what Xander feels is real here. But he also, like, if he had a completely different take, he'd be an absolute idiot to express it in that moment. Right. And I feel like Danny just does such a good job of being like, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And when Jeff says, Danny, how do you feel about this whole thing? Danny's response felt so sincere to who Danny is. Yeah. And I just think that like we have, and I'm not saying that Xander's not sincere. I'm just saying that like, it's one of those weird situations where like Xander, there's really only one thing to say in that situation, no matter how you're feeling. But with Danny, it's like, he didn't start going like, he didn't have a big speech like Liana had. He didn't have this emotional thing like Deshaun did. He just kept it very Danny. I think there's something so authentic about this guy, the way he's playing the game, the way that he is doing everything out there, the way he's interacting with everybody. It just feels like Danny has not stopped being Danny because of Survivor. Yeah. That's a very good thing. And it's something that we rarely see on the show in this type of way. Because I think Ricard is very much being Ricard, but I think Ricard's a different person than Danny is. Right. Like I use this word as the highest compliment. Danny is like a simple dude. And like, he's a kind, smart, like easygoing guy, and shockingly people are not wanting to get rid of him for it, but he's just very refreshing. He's like, we haven't seen someone like this, just like cool, calm, collected in all facets of the game, I feel like, ever, especially with like the alliance that he's in and this type of season that we're on, and just like the twist that he was dealing with. Like he's really managing this just beautifully. Yeah, he's doing everything he possibly can. Except we want everyone to win, I guess. Yes, I know. We want everybody to win. Yeah, but I will say that like the way I was talking about Shan at the beginning, like Danny, I don't think Danny's going to play Survivor again. Maybe, but probably not. Maybe he does but I think that Deshaun's more interesting, probably from a general viewer standpoint. So I
Yeah.
just want to give the props to Danny, because I always go back to this, and really Danny's just another version. I always say you need like the normal old dude, and I know Danny's not old. He's 33 years old, but at the same time, I feel that Danny is wise beyond his years, because you have to think this is a guy who is retired from his profession. He played
Yeah.
professional football. He went through his whole career and he is retired. Like, he doesn't play football anymore. So he's at that point in his life that a lot of 40-year-old men are at. So you can still lump him in with the Gary Hogabooms and your Terrys and things like that, where it's like that's the point of his life he's at. He's competitive. He's beyond like working. And
Yep.
so my thing is, when I see him, he fits into that. And I always say that type of player should be on every single season. The Brendan
Yep.
Shapiro. It's not the most exciting, but it's normally the most authentic. And I think they're doing a great job. I think Danny's just doing a great job of showing why this type of, he's an ex-NFL player. He is not playing this game like any other ex-NFL or ex-professional athlete has played this game. He's just playing the game the way Danny McCray would play the game.
Yeah, it's really it like grounds a season too. Like it makes the drama and fighting between the other players just seem like kind of unnecessary. Like, and a season full of that gameplay would not be exciting, but it is refreshing. It's a little like, and I guess you do see this with some athletes, like Gary Hogaboom, like not a crazy player. Elizabeth from 39, not a crazy player. I like that. I think, and I know like a handful of athletes are recruits. I don't necessarily think Danny is, but I don't think that, like, whether he is or isn't, I don't like, it doesn't really change my opinion on this, but it's just, maybe it's because they've been in just hyper competitive situations and they just know how to handle this stuff a lot better.
I agree. No, I agree with that. And I just, I think he's just managed to do what he wants to do and play the game he wants to. And I think he's picked up a lot of fans, but he's still not going to be as exciting as a Shan. It's just not going to happen, unfortunately. Like, that's just where we're at.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. No one has stood up a tribal in like a month. So I just love that for the
Keep
cast.
it going, everybody. Keep it going.
Congratulations to the cast of season 41.
Yeah, we need more like this. Just please keep this going where nobody's getting up at tribals anymore.
I know we talked about this. So we have a very, at this point, I think it's happening. We have a finale with 5 people. How do we think this is going to work out? Do we think we're going to have like a standard vote out next week and then like a really elongated like 5-4-3 vote? Or excuse me, 5-4 vote?
I don't know about that. I think that they're just gonna be able to take their time a little bit more with this. Like, I think that there'll probably be thrown in a reward challenge or something like that, maybe to eat something going into the final immunity. I think that we're gonna just go back to kind of the old school way of doing this. Remember, they always say, "Oh, it's so jam packed, we don't have time for anything else." If you go back and watch any finale of Survivor, they could cut 30 minutes. It's total BS.
Oh my God. Watch the Australia finale.
I know. Like, and you talk about, but I'm talking about like the newer ones. Like they said, oh, with Winners at War, we just had so much to cover. They could have made Winners at War finale. Like, they went right up to the minute. Trust me, if they were going to have a normal reunion, they would not have went right up to the minute. They would have ended that with an hour left. So it's just really what they need to do. I think that they're probably going to do it about 2 hours and then have a little bit longer of a reunion, because they did film the reunion while they were out there. So it's not going to be a live reunion. It's something that already happened, and they can take a little bit more of their time with that. And I think that's probably what we'll end up seeing.
Yeah, that's true. And we have like, especially with like the beginning of the season, there was so much like, look at what it's like to produce an episode, and like, look at what it's like when everyone's walking. Maybe they'll do that because this will be the first time ever that we'll have a reunion. This will only be, I guess, like the 3rd time that votes were read at Tribal Council, but the first time everyone's going to be together and like directly doing that reunion. So I think that's going to be cool. I'm excited about it. They're going to be a lot like hotter than usual because they're all going to be just coming off of voting for each other. But I think that'll make for a cool and like probably way more authentic dynamic. I love seeing the players get all like chubbed up after eating again, but also everyone's like watched the show and they've been able to like come to terms with things. No one has come to terms with anything yet because they just voted for a winner.
Well, and this is the time where Jeff should say, okay, so now what if this person made it to the end? What would you have done? This is the time to do it.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at with that one. Anyway, where else can we go here? Somebody just said potential final two. Alexa, you see any shot of this being a final two?
When was the last time we had a final two?
Wasn't it Cagayan?
It's been that long? I guess
Mhm.
so. I mean, that would be cool. Maybe they are trying to switch it up a bit. I mean, that could be a way of keeping everyone on their toes. That way we still get like the jam-packed finale. I wonder how that works with the fire making twist though. Like do you do fire making at 4 and then a final immunity, or do you I don't know.
Well,
Or do
and
they get
Alexa,
rid of fire making?
this is why I don't even think that we have any chance in hell of it being a final two, because they're so set on this fire making thing at final 4. There's no way they're going to then have it be a final 3. I don't think we'll ever see a final 2 again. I really don't.
What if they don't have the fire making? I would cry.
I would be floored. That's all I'll say. I would be absolutely floored.
Yeah. I don't know. That would be interesting. I haven't heard. I mean,
I feel like we would have known it was a final 2 by now. I feel like somebody would have spoiled that it was. I feel like Redmond would have been like, "Hey, it's final 2."
Right. And we don't follow spoilers, but we are spoiled on like stuff like this, like these kind of twists. So I feel like final 2 would have popped up by now. But I don't know. I mean, would be cool, but I'm not sure. Who knows? Could be interesting though.
Let's hope. Let's pray. Let's see what happens.
Yes. What else do you have on this episode?
I mean, that's really
happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a long tribal council. It was pretty much a half hour there.
I kept looking at the clock, and I was using that to decide if Deshaun was going to flip it or not.
That's what I thought. And then once they had that whole conversation, I'm like, "Ooh, Deshaun is screwed.
Yeah,
he's going home." I'm happy Deshaun survived it. I think that we're going to see 42. We're going to see this happen again. We're going to see the person go home. And then I think that in season 43, they probably won't get anybody out there. Somebody earlier said it's actually a 50% chance. And that's true as long as Jeff always opens one of the boxes and then gives you the option. If he doesn't open one of the boxes and then give you the option, then it's actually not a 50% chance. It's still a 33% chance. So it's a risk. You want to take that risk because Survivor is always changing. And if you know there's going to be 3 boxes, there's no guarantee that Jeff's going to say, actually, do you want to keep that one or take this? Like, there's no guarantee.
That's what I kept wondering. I was like, okay, Jeff's going to open one. Like, what is the purpose of this? Because now if I'm playing on season 43, like, do I plan for the 33% chance or the 50% chance?
Yeah.
And what if Deshaun just picked the skull? Yeah. Like what if Jeff opened the fire? It's like, okay, bye.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely going to open one of the skulls. Like, he knew where the skulls were, so that's always going to happen. But what I'm saying is that doesn't necessarily mean that the next time he plays, he has to open like that one. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Somebody says if Jeff always opens a box, switching is a 2/3 chance. I don't believe that's true. I believe it's 50-50 no matter what.
Yeah, I think. Well, Nicola's saying it's for TV. No, I know it's about TV ratings, but what I'm saying is Deshaun is picking first. What if Deshaun picks a skull? Deshaun picks before Jeff picks.
Yeah, if he picks a skull, I still think Jeff would open up the other skull.
Oh, the other skull. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's what you're working with.
I don't understand how it's 2/3 for switching. If somebody wants to explain that.
No, this was always explained in those like logic, like strategy game books, and I always forget the reasoning, or I can't. Well, we'll look up Monty Hall. But yeah, I thought it was fun. I think Jeff opening it did make it more exciting.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So yeah, everybody's saying it's 2/3, but I don't know. My biggest thing though is moving forward, if Jeff doesn't open that box, if he doesn't, then you have a 1/3 chance. And I just worry that one of these days he's going to say, actually, we're not going to do this. You thought that's what you're going to do, but it's new Survivor. You're not going to get that. You're not going to be able to
Here's a
game
fourth
this game.
Box. Yeah.
And everybody says because there's originally a 1/3 chance, but as soon as he opens one, there's 2 boxes left, and it's either this one or that one. That's a 50-50.
I know. It's like we got to look it up because I've always thought that too. And there's a reason, but it's not something I can explain or understand. So
the way I look at it is,
doesn't matter.
If Deshaun flipped, he went home. If he didn't flip, he stayed. That's 50-50 in my book.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that, like, especially after that whole conversation, like for Deshaun to just like open that and then be dipped out, like that would have just been such a bad way for him to go home. So
Yeah.
Although it was fair, I'm glad he did not go home
I
in
agree.
that situation.
I agree. All right. Well, that's really all I got. Alexa, I see this one. I know you're gonna hate me for doing this, but I have to say one more thing here on this 2/3 thing. I have to. I get it.
Oh God.
Because
okay.
they said that when Jeff will always open the bad one, meaning the other box still retains that 2/3 chance. However, when one is opened, he knows not to take that one. And that one's out of the mix. That's all I got.
I think we got to just look it up.
Yeah, I guess.
It's one of those things, like, I love all of you, but it's a lot of opinions.
Yeah,
I got to look it up.
Sounds good. All right.
Phil and I are doing this live, and who knows how that's going to go for any of us.
Yeah.
We unfortunately do not have a guest for next week, so you will be blessed with just Phil and myself. We're looking at Sunday afternoon / Sunday evening for our final 6 predictions and power rankings. Someone says Monty Hall's evil tears people apart. I feel like we're losing viewers by the second because of this. So tune in this Sunday. It's the beginning of the month. It's a great time to become a patron. Phil and I just talked about what we are thankful for this season for our retrospective. And then if you become a $5 patron, you can ask questions and have your questions answered on our Q&A podcast. So become a patron at patreon.com/survivor specialist. Follow us on social media. Tell your friends, and we'll see y'all on Sunday.
Sounds good, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.